All right, so I have the stem separated, so we're gonna put the piano track in its own audio track now, calling this piano sample. So what I'm gonna do for the time being is I'm gonna move all this over to the right just to give myself some room here. So I have a harmony that I've already written. So what I'm going to do is drag in the piano, and let's just listen to this real quick. And you'll notice that it's not perfect, like you can kind of still hear the bass in the background, but that's okay. I mean, once I get it layered with everything else that we're going to be doing in the beat, you won't really be able to hear it. So it's not a big deal. Anyway. So I have this harmony down here that I wrote ahead of time. This is in G major, pretty sure. Yeah. That's G major. So it's G major, that's the first chord. Second chord is B7. Pretty sure. Looks like B7. Yeah, B7. Now this is, sounds like E minor. Yep, that's E minor. Just E minor without a seventh, I think. So it's E, G, B, E. Yeah, that's just E minor. And then the fourth chord that turns around back into G major is actually A7. So A7. Yeah, that's an A7. Maybe we could actually figure out how to go to like D7 to go back to G major. Yeah, that'd be nice. But anyway, for now, that's what we got. So the goal here is to try to fit this piano into that harmony somehow. So I think I heard some chords in here that we can use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring one of those little MIDI blocks over, and we're just going to transcribe this piano right in the piano roll, just like this. So let's start. That sounds like a chord that we want right there. Basically, what I try to do is find a major chord. The reason being that if you can find a major chord in the sample, that can of course be used under a major chord in your harmony. In addition, you can use it under a minor chord. So like, for example, let me go over to the piano real quick. If you find a C major in your sample, obviously you can put that on C major. So if like C's in the bass, it's going to sound good. You can also put it within an A minor chord in your harmony. So like if there's a C in the bass, it's going to sound major. If you put an A in the bass, all of a sudden it's going to sound like A minor. and it's still going to work. It doesn't matter, what the instruments are doing in the sample. If the instruments are doing something in C major, you can play A minor. Your harmony can be in A minor and it will still work. In addition to that, you can also do a seventh chord. If you find a sample that has a major chord going on, you can put a seventh chord on top of that and it'll work. Because, the seventh is just basically that flat 7 that's in a dominant seventh chord is basically just being added on top of it. So in the case of C major, that would be a B flat. So so the trick is really just to find like a major triad. If you can find a major triad, you can use that sample pretty much anywhere in your harmony. That's what we're going to try to do first. So what I'll do here is I'll bring this MIDI block over and I'll put it right beneath it. So right off the bat, I hear a note. So I got lucky there. I played it the first time, so it's a G. So I'm going to just draw that in there. It's actually lower though. You can hear that. I also hear. So there's also a C in there. That's interesting. So far, it could be many different things. There's also this there. An E flat, huh? I also hear this note, B flat, or A sharp. It feels like there's a C in the bass there, even though we can't hear the bass line because we took it out. It kind of sounds like there's a C in the bass. So. This note feels a little bit more dominant than the other ones. So, okay, let's go with those notes that we picked out so far. That sounds good enough. So what is this? So there's a G, there's a B flat, there's a C, there's an E flat. That's a, what is that? That's a C minor 7th chord. That's a C minor 7 chord. So what I'll do is I'll kind of like chop that. And I'll label it C minor 7. So that in the future I can go back to it and grab it if I need it. That sounds like a good one right there. Let's get that one. What's that? I don't know yet, so let's find out. Nah, that sounds a little bit too busy. A lot of these chords are very dense. You know, so when you're doing stuff like what we're doing, we don't really want dense chords. This one sounds okay. Let's try that. So I hear an F in there, so I'm going to draw an F. I also hear, so that's a B flat. So far we've got a B flat and an F, so that's a good sign. So there's some fifths going on. But it's actually a fourth. B flat is a fourth up from F. I'm going to lower those in velocity a little bit so I can hear the original. So there's another F on top, it sounds like. There's a D. You hear that? D. So that is a B flat major chord. And that is exactly what we're looking for. So we've got B flat, F, the fifth, another B flat on top, D, which is the third, and another F on top. Now I might be missing some notes, but you know, it's good enough for what I'm doing. So I'm just gonna solo that and see what it sounds like if I play a B flat inversion, an inverted chord on the piano. Looks like we lost. Yeah. That sounds right to me. Perfect. So we can actually stop there. That's what's so cool about this. So what I'll do is I'll chop that. It's nice because there's a little a leading chord there that maybe we can use, but let's save that for later. You can hear a little bit of the bass at the end, but that's fine. So this is a B flat major chord. Now I don't think that there's any upper extensions in there. Let's check it out just in case. I don't hear like a seventh or anything like that. So there's no A in it. But actually, while we have this, let me show you what I'm talking about. So I'm just going to loop this. All right, so this will be looped. So we can put B flat in the bass, and we can play an inverted B flat major chord on top. And that sounds pretty good. Let me turn this down a little bit so you can hear the piano. So I'm just gonna turn that down so you can hear what I'm doing on the keyboard. So that sounds pretty good. So that's like, you know, that's a B flat major. So of course that's going to sound good. So the relative minor would be G minor. So if I put a G in the bass, I could even just play that same B flat on top, and it's going to work. The reason is because you have F, which is the minor seventh of G. You've got B flat, which is the minor third. And then you've got D, which is the fifth. So I won't even play the chord in the right hand, even if I don't include the chord in the right hand and I just play the bass. You can hear how that works. Another thing, of course, that you can do that I mentioned earlier is you can turn it into a seventh chord. So a B flat seventh chord would have an A flat in it. So let's do B flat in the bass. Let's do the third D, the fifth F, and then also the seventh A flat on top. Let's see how that sounds. And that works. And that would resolve very nicely to an E flat major chord. And we can get away with adding that seventh in there, that flat seven, because it's not in the original sample. It's not there. That flat seventh isn't going to contradict anything in the harmonic mapping of the sample. So we can do it. So we have found our major chord. And what we're going to do now is we're going to put it into our harmony. So I'm going to unloop that. I'm going to go back to my harmony. And I'm just going to copy and paste that B flat major. All right, so I've got it copied right now. So the first chord here is G major. The sample that we took, the root of it is B flat major. So we want to transcribe it down 3 semitones. So -1 would be A, -2 would be A flat, and -3 would be G. Let's hear how this sounds. Works perfectly. Next chord is B7. So if we take that original sample, put it back to B flat position, this is interesting. So B7. It's going to be 1 semitone up from the root position of the sample. B7 is a half step up from B flat 7. B is a half step up from B flat. As I said earlier, and as I demonstrated earlier, we can use the major chord as a 7th chord. We can use that major chord beneath a 7th chord in our harmony because it's not playing that minor 7th. So our harmony can play it, but the original sample doesn't have to, and it will fit in it perfectly. So let's see how that sounds. Sounds pretty good. Not really any complaints there. I mean, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to reset the tempo of this later. I'm just going to put these closer together so you can kind of hear how things are working so far. And we'll loop it. So again, this is going from G major to B7. Sounds pretty good. All right, let's bring in the other chords. All right, the next is E minor. So what is the relative major of E minor? A way that you can figure this out is by going up 3 semitones or 3 half steps from E. So the relative major of E minor is actually G major. So we need to put this B flat major sample into G major, which we've already done in the first bar by going down 3 semitones. So we can actually just copy and paste that first adjusted sample into the third chord. And it sounds like this. And that kind of works, right? So let's listen to what we have so far. Whew. Pretty dope. All right. See what music theory can do? All right. So let's bring it home. We have an A dominant 7th chord at the end to take us home to G major. So all we need to do for this one is take the original sample, which is B flat major, and it needs to be detuned 1 semitone, which will give us an A major chord in the sample. So that's playing A. That's playing A, C sharp, and E. But what we want to do is we want to put it above our harmony, which is playing A7, which has a G at the top. So that's what we're going to do. See what that sounds like. It works. Let's listen to the whole thing on loop. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to slow it back down a little bit. So I want each of these chords to be an entire bar. I'm going to extend them out. Now, what might end up happening here is we might end up hearing that bass. But it should actually work, assuming that the bass was playing notes that are in the, in the chord of B flat major. So I'm going to turn down the harmony piano and turn up the sample piano. Then I'm going to add some reverb to the piano sample. Now, I recently purchased a plugin from Goodhertz that I'm quite enjoying, and it is called Megaverb 3. I like that one. So I'm going to make it a little less wet, turn it down here, make it a little bit more dry. Check that out. Whew. probably a little too much reverb. Yeah, it's a little too much for my taste. I think 7 is good. Now to the piano that I'm using, I am going to add something called Semantics Origin to it. It's going to saturate it a little bit, put some movement on it. And this is just kind of like a vintage plugin that makes it sound like crap, which I quite like. So we'll put it to vinyl. And I'm going to solo that out so we can hear what this is doing real quick. It's going to saturate the hell out of it. It's going to put a lot of movement. And then I'm going to put the same thing on the sample. It's probably a little too much, actually. So we're going to drop the detuning. I don't think we need the detuning in this case. All right. Now we have the piano of the sample playing the harmony that we wrote. So we're not letting the sample dictate the harmony of our music. I think what a lot of beat makers do is they, fall into the trap of just chopping things up, and not really thinking about composing a harmony, but rather randomly playing chops until they stumble upon something just by chance that sounds good. So this is being very intentional with the samples, knowing what we want to do when we go in, and manipulating the sample to do what we want rather than letting it tell us what to do. And that's how I like to make beats. I don't like relying on luck all the time. There's a place for that, but I try to avoid that in my process. Yeah, I quite like that.